Test, 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 test. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So we'll take a little bit of time since we got some other people here. We'll use this time to kind of see if we can help diagnose technique a little bit. And then kind of talk a little bit about class format and what we're trying to do. So to kind of help, being that time is limited and, you know, with these 45-minute classes and so forth, you wouldn't think that 5 minutes makes very much of a difference, but it's making a huge difference in trying to get everyone kind of in a good place, you know, and especially with the people that are working from home. They have so many distractions at home. It's hard to keep them focused. All right. No offense, but your son he is all over the place. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, he is like all over the place. So, but I understand those challenges. So we're kind of trying to work through some of that. So this week I kind of started focusing in on a technique, typically a hand technique. Right. So, and then just having them work on that for just about 5 minutes, and then just kind of giving them that as homework to kind of work on and so forth, to kind of help so that we don't take away too much class time. So the way I've been breaking down class now is about 8 minutes of warm up, 5 to 8 minutes of warm up, then about 12 to 15 minutes of kicking technique, whether it's step, single kicks, whatever. Then about 5 to 10 minutes of pumse, and then the rest of it for sparring. Now you can do it interchangeably. If you want to skip pumse and just do 20 minutes of sparring technique, you can certainly do that, or vice versa. If you want to just focus all on pumse, you can do that as well. I'm not trying to go through every pumse in every class. Just kind of, for me, I've been eyeballing who has interest in testing, and then trying to make sure that, okay, I've got up to blue belt testing. So we're going to just go through all those pumses up to blue belt and kind of work in detail. So for you guys, when you guys get the chance to teach and so forth, you know, I'll leave it up to you on how you want to do it. Whatever your comfort level is. I mean, part of that's the comfort level too. If you're not very good in pumse, then you probably don't want to spend a lot of time doing the pumse. You probably want to go into something you have a little more confidence with. So I don't have a problem with that, being that it's going to be a one-off when you guys are going to be thrown to the wolves, per se. When you're doing pumse, one of the things that you want to keep in mind, because of the fact that we are also doing Zoom, and we'll continue, even when I'm not here and you guys are teaching class, we will be doing the Zoom. So you will be wearing the headset and doing all of that. You want to make sure that you probably have to do everything backward. So you need to learn how to do your pumse, not turning to the left, but turning to the right. No pressure. It feels very awkward, right? Okay. One of the things I remember growing up, my instructor wanted to dupe me because I was always, I got this. So one testing, he made me do my pumse backwards, meaning you start with the very last movement and then you work backward during a test. Right? He would do crazy stuff. He would like, okay, he would put a blindfold on me, and then he would go, just spin, and he would just tell me to stop. And then from that point on, I had to do my pumse. Yeah. Yeah. No, just to do it. Yeah. Because I was that cocky kid. I got this, right? Like literally after my white belt test, after I got humiliated, right? Because Grandmaster Namte, he was in audience for my white belt test, or my yellow belt test, basically. And so the instructor asked me, who is this person? And I was like, I don't know. Because he didn't look like his picture, you know? So I was like, I don't know, sir. Right. And so I ended up doing push-ups while everyone's answering questions. I had to do push-ups for the entire period. So I did like 100 push-ups. Right. So I was humiliated. And so from that moment on, I made sure I knew everything. So I studied my study sheet. I memorized everything verbatim. It was just a 1-page or 2-page study sheet is what it was. Had everything that we needed to know from a terminology standpoint. But I memorized it verbatim. I memorized everything verbatim. I memorized every student school rule, all the names of the pumses, all the definitions verbatim to what it was on the sheet. So it got to the point where they were like, okay, well, whose name is under the Korean flag on the sheet, on the study sheet? That's how much detail they got, right? Because they wanted to dupe me, right? Because I was like, I got this now, I got this. So I was always that one that's like, okay, I got this. So the instructor's like, okay, let's see if you got it. And then he would throw me into these scenarios during tests, especially, right? Just to get me, right? But what it taught me was obviously to be a little bit more humble, because you know, I didn't like being the laughing stock when it came to doing testings and so forth. Even though, and for me, years later, when I got to talk to him, it was like, right, I only did that to you because you were that good. You know, he said basically, when I changed the script on the test is because you're that good, right? And so, so that was a compliment to me, is basically what it was doing. But you know, at that time, I was just like, oh man, he's a jerk. But I was a teenager, right? I never wanted to teach. And every time I had to teach someone, I got mad. I got mad because I wasn't training. Or that's in my mind, I was thinking I wasn't training. And so that's what kind of got me to where I'm at now. And so to try to get you guys involved earlier in the process really helps you to understand where your limitations are. You know, what you need to work on. Because as an instructor, we're expected to know pretty much everything. That's the expectation. When you're a black belt, you're expected to know everything, right? And for me, I don't believe in that philosophy. Everyone has achieved black belt because of the work that you've put in, right? It's not necessarily, oh, how high you can kick, right? Because guess what? If you can't kick like Natalie, then you're not a black belt, right? If you can't make that standard, then realistically, right, you're not getting black belts. I'm not getting black belt, right? If that was the standard. Right? If it's being able to do splits, being able to do 540s, you know, 720s in the air and throwing those multiple kicks like Kuki One demo team, right? Then none of us would be black belts if that was the standard, right? What I've come to realize over the course of the 36 years I've been involved is that for each individual, the black belt journey is different. The criteria is there, right? Kicking, basic kicking, you know, forms, self-defense, sparring techniques, all of that stuff. The knowledge base is all there. That's the standard. You have a general knowledge of that. Can you execute it? Right? Maybe, maybe not. Some people can. Right? I'm not going to expect you guys, right? Maybe for some of you guys can throw a 360 technique or a 540 technique. Right? For others, right? 180 is tough. 180 technique is a little bit tough. And so, right? But for each of you, that getting to that point and overcoming that journey was difficult or hard. Right? So, just push the side button on me. Right? So, for each of us, it's different, but you're still gaining something. You have something to contribute to the art. You know, and so, you know, there are people out there that are old traditionalists that are like, oh yeah, well, if they can't do that, they shouldn't be a black belt. All right. If they can't kick above their, you know, their waist, they shouldn't be a black belt. And I look at that and I question that because, right, some people can't anymore, right? They've damaged their body so much that they can't do it. Knee replacement, if you have a bad knee or something, right? There are certain people that can't do certain things. Pivoting is hard for them, right? I'm finding out like crescent kick is not good for a lot of the older group. Right? We've had 3 adults now that have injured themselves doing crescent kicks. Right? They're injuring in that area there, yeah. So I'm kind of reevaluating, should I keep that crescent kick in there or not, you know? Because a part of that is what is happening is the pivoting. Right? Now, when you're thin, when you're like Dason thin, right? Isaiah thin, pivoting doesn't bother you. But I guarantee that the more weight we gain, the more pivoting starts to affect us. And so it's important as you're teaching adults versus kids, right? You're gonna find is like, okay, if you've been doing crescent kick for 30 years, right, and you've been doing it the proper way, and you know how to minimize friction, it's not gonna bother you. But if you're like most people, right, what happens when they pivot? They start on the ball of their foot, but then they go onto the heel. And so when they get onto the heel, that's where the damage occurs. And you're not feeling it the first time, the second time, the third time, the 10th time, the 20th time. It's when you get into the hundreds of thousands of times you've thrown this kick now, and you keep doing that same wrong way, right? The tendons and ligaments are starting to tear, just tiny hairline tears, right? And then pretty soon at some point, then you feel it. And then when you feel it, it's like, oh, I can't do it anymore, right? It's just like my jumping, right? For me, it's hard for me to do these stationary jumps now. When I have you guys are doing jumping over side kick, it like kind of do jumping over side kick in place, it hurts my knees for me to get here, to do that. If I step, I can do it, no problem. It's the stationary motion because of all the bad exercises that I did growing up as a kid, right? My instructor made me do duck walks around the building, around a big building like this on concrete. Duck walks. We used to have to carry each other like a fireman's carry kind of thing up 27 stairs that were like it was like this, right? That was a stairway on our back at my old school because we were on the second level to the floor. It was almost like climbing a ladder. But we used to have to do that with people in our back, and we used to have to jump each stair. Now, how bad is that for your knees? That's what I'm saying, right? Right? But it's so much impact. You think about it, so much impact on the knees. And of course, we're like this. So now, once you go beyond 90 degrees, you're tearing ligaments and tendons. You're stretching those things out, right? So it's always important when anytime we're doing squats, you want to just go to 90. You don't want to go beyond that, right? When you're in a continuous motion. Now, if you're in a stretching motion, it's a little bit different. You can gradually get down to, this here, and you just hold that. You're not going up and down and constantly retracting, contracting, right? And damaging that ligament. So, all right. So, who wants to be our first volunteer? All right, Mr. Campbell. All right. Mr. Giles is exempt from this unless he chooses to do that. All right. So, fighting sense, real quick. All right. So, I want you to throw a kick that you feel like you're not good at, or you don't feel as confident with. Okay, just pick a kick, right? I want you to throw a few times, just easy, not real strong or anything, just easy. Okay, so watch the technique. Okay, you guys know what that is? All right. This is that 360 reverse side kick, right? 360 reverse side kick, or otherwise known as the tornado motion reverse side kick. Okay? Okay, good. All right. So, any initial observations? Hmm? Okay. Okay. So the knee is coming up, right, on his second leg more so than his first leg, right, on the kicking, all right? What else did you guys notice? Right. Throw a few more. What you guys should do is you should walk around, right? And the reason for that is you get different perspectives, just, right? Right, just to kind of see, right? So this is what I do in class, right? When we're walking and doing, doing the kicks, right? Hana, you do the kick. And I'm walking around to watch, to kind of see things from different angles. All right? Just to kind of see. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I was having fun watching Natalie do this kick the other day, though. Yeah, right? She's not very good either. All right? Yeah. right? She can do stationary kicks just fine. It's the others. All right, let's not wear him out though. He's like, he's already starting to breathe a little heavy. He's like, all right, and he's not even kicking hard or anything. So, all right, so that's, you guys have an idea? All right, okay, so let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at the kick itself, not the step motion. Okay, what is he struggling with on the kick motion? Balance a little bit, but part of balance is attributed to getting up off the ground. That 360 motion. All right. What do you mean foot positioning was off? Okay, so foot positioning, right? So his kick sometimes looks like this, sometimes looks like this, right? Okay, so that's one thing, right? It's supposed to be a side kick, right? A reverse side kick. So, right, we want to make sure that the toes are pulled back, right? The toes kind of pulled down so that the heel is a little bit higher, or at least the blade of your foot is perpendicular, or excuse me, parallel to the ground, right? We don't want it to be perpendicular, right? Okay, so that's kicking technique, yeah. But what was the actual kick itself? What was he doing wrong? Did you notice the extension of the kick? Right? Hip position was off because, right? Because he didn't know exactly where to throw that kick. Right? Targeting, right? So Natalie kind of mentioned, oh yeah, you're off target. You're not hitting the target, right? Remember we talked about this, or maybe we didn't. Targeting is important, especially when we're doing reverse kicks, is to be able to spot your target, right? The more that we can turn and see our target, the better that kick, especially when we're doing reverse kicks, you're going to end up more to the target. What happens a lot of times with just basic reverse side kick, people kick too early. And so they miss the target, right? They're not straight. It may be shoulder off. Right? If this is my target here and I want to kick here, I might be kicking shoulder to side. Okay? There are certain people that, yeah, they're really off. They kick over here. Right? But the majority of the people, they're going to be off usually toward the front somewhere. Right? They're not going to be straight here. So let's go back to the side kick. The end product of a side kick, when you fully extend a side kick, right? What should we be looking for on the full extension of a side kick? What should we be looking for? The pivot, but you're in the air. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Correct. Right. Straight line between the shoulder, hip, knee, and heel of the kicking leg. Okay. Now it becomes difficult because you see a lot of people pivot all the way, right? But then they kick off. Okay? And part of that is because of this instead of this. Part of that's this instead of this. Shoulders back. It's like chumbi. When you go into chumbi, right? You see kids chumbi and they're like this. They're kind of hunched a little bit, all right? Chumbi instead of this, all right? Think about competition team, right? We always talk about this, right? When you come in, breathing in. Right? And when you breathe in, right, shoulders are going back. Shoulders are going back. It's almost like, having pride in yourself, right? If you have low self-esteem, your body language kind of shows. It's this. It's head down, right? Versus shoulders back, chin up, right? That factors into a lot of body posture, factors into a lot of how we can throw a technique effectively, right? So once again, we want to be here. We want the shoulders back, right? So our shoulders are in alignment with our hip, our knee, and our heel this way, right? Too many people, this happens. The hip moves back. So the hip is a little bit behind where we're kicking, right? And people make it work, right? I can make it look like a side kick. The end product looks like a side kick, but my positioning is off. Right? So I'm not maximizing the effectiveness of the technique, right? Because when your hip is out, you're only relying on that snapping motion to create your power, not the thrust, right? That's what's going to create your power. That forward movement where the heel is driving is going to create the maximum amount of power in your technique. But if we only focus on just a snapping motion, yeah, it can look like a side kick. I can make it look like a side kick, but it's not going to be as strong. All right? And what happens, like I said, it's because of this. Right? The hip ends up coming out. So we have to learn to make sure that we're here. Now, when we do reverse kicks, it's even harder. Right? When you turn to your back, it's even harder because here, now you got to try to get that alignment here. And the tendency is because people aren't used to turning this way, they overcompensate. Right? So what they do is I can't see, so I got to turn fast. Just what happens when you turn fast. Right? You over-rotate. If you notice, right, Jason, do a reverse side kick here real quick. Okay? Okay, try again. Okay. Did you notice his pivot foot? Go ahead and try again. Now he's going to try to adjust. Okay. You see how he's falling? Right? Go ahead and try it one more time. Okay. Now, if you go over to that side and have him throw that same kick again, now watch his foot position. Now watch his kick. Okay. Okay, he tried to adjust on this very last one, but if you notice the first few, right? What happened was it became this. Kind of a circle, right? Circular motion versus a linear, right? Thrust in and down, right? And so what happens with a lot of people when they start to do that, because he's compensating, he's trying to turn because he can't get his head around enough to be able to see that target. So he turns ahead and then you see the hip over rotates, goes a little bit past target line. He tries to slow it down and control it, but then the hip falls out, and then that's why he's off a little bit. And then that's where you get this motion a little bit, this little hooking type of motion or here. We want to make sure that you go straight in and straight out. Think about breaking a board, right? When you're hitting target, if you hit target kind of a little bit turning, you don't get that effectiveness, like pushing into that target, thrusting in, right? And so we want to make sure when they're doing reverse side kick is to make sure that they're moving down that straight line, that linear boom here, and being able to land with control, where they're not falling too early or falling too late, all right? And that's all part of body position. It's all about spotting your target. Now, it's always hard because when we train this, when we train reverse side kick, you're going to pivot, right? If I tell you to pivot and lock it down, you really can't see your target unless you're an owl, right? If you can get your head turning, you can't do that. You have to compensate a little bit, right? If I'm in a true traditional back stance, right? If I just pivot and do this, I can't really see my target, right? So I have to compensate. So when I teach it, what I always encourage people when you're first teaching reverse side kick, have them pivot and slide. Right? Now they can see the target. Right? Right? And then have them shoot straight forward. What a lot of people do, right? Especially color belts, they get this part down. When they kick, they repivot again. Right? Little kids do this a lot. Right? Your son does this a lot. All the little ones do it a lot. So they'll pivot here, right? I tell them to here, lock it down. But then when they kick, they do an extra pivot. So now, yeah, because why? Because they're so used to this, leaning forward. And once again, I'm doing this as an over-exaggeration, right? But my son does it. My son, when he does his side kick, it's the same way. His shoulders are forward. Right? His side kick is high and it looks good, but his butt's sticking out. All right? All right? And so he loses power in that technique because he's hunched over a little bit, okay? All right, so going back to Mr. Campbell's technique, that 360 reverse side kick, right? So one of the things that I noticed when he was doing the step and the turn, especially with the left leg, right? This leg is really low when he's kicking. So what happens is that he has a hard time extending out and pushing, right? When we're doing any kind of a jump kick, it's always important to try to get that knee up. When we do those one-step jumping kicks or these, like this tornado kick motion or like that, the higher you bring that lift knee, the knee that's not kicking, the higher your body, or the more your body's going to raise up. If you only lift it to here, then it's harder to get the body up, right? So like when you're doing tornado kick, it's the same thing here, right? You can do it that way, or you can do it this way by picking that knee up here, lift here, right? But a lot of people don't do that, right? They just want to spin fast, so they just think it's this, right? Keeping the knee low, and that's where they lose their balance. So going back to Mr. Campbell, so when he did this motion, he came around, and this was low, right? And it wasn't really bent very much. So he doesn't give himself an opportunity to straighten it out. It's almost like, right? It's almost like this. There's no real power behind it. He's just relying on his mass, hoping that his leg will hit the target with time, and his mass will help push him through, right? It's like stepping up side kick. When you do a stepping up side kick, right? Jason, you should know this. We spent a lot of time when you were doing your black belt break on this, right? Right? Jason had a habit of, when he did a stepping up side kick or a skip side kick, he would lean back, right? So he would move forward with all this energy, and then he would lean back, and he would lose all that energy. And so he would just touch the board, and he wouldn't be able to get through, right? I don't know how many thousands of skip side kicks we worked on before his black belt test to get him through, to get him going here and then finishing here, right? And that's right, because his technique wasn't quite, and for me, I didn't notice that he wasn't pushing through very well, right? He was just kind of kicking with a little bit of a bend. He wasn't really trying to push through. And so, right, so because he was mostly straight, I was trying to get him here, pushing into it. That way I could help him with that board break, right? As a holder, right? I wanted to kind of push to get the timing right, right? So when you don't see people bending that knee and pushing the heel in, right? Now you're just relying on, right? Just mass, right? So it's this motion, right? It's this motion. That's what's the timing of this is going to help you with being able to generate power. Your timing for the impact, right? It's like a hammer, right? If you don't impact at the right time, the nail doesn't go down, right? Unless you have a really heavy hammer just laying on top of the nail, eventually, right, it'll push down into the whatever it is, right? But the timing of the impact when you hit the head of the nail, right, generates the force that allows that nail to go into the whatever it's going into, right? It's a lot easier with, a hand hammer versus a sledgehammer, right? Sledgehammer has a lot more mass behind it, right? You versus Mr. Roldan. Mr. Roldan has a lot more mass behind him than you, right? So it's going to be easier for him to be able to generate power than you. You have to rely more on technique. Can you break the same amount of, let's say, because for someone his size, he should be able to break 11 to 12 boards easily, right? Right? You too, Mr. Campbell, you should be able to break 11, 12 boards, like a skip side kick or a back kick or something like that, right? Right? But you have, right? You have the advantage of mass, right? For Mr. Daniel and myself, right, we're not as heavy as you guys, so we have to have good technique. We have to generate speed and impact versus you can impact a little early, or you can straighten out a little early, and then you have mass to kind of help you with that. But it's still hard. You still have to be able to hit and push through, right? Because you think about 11 boards, it's like, it's a lot. That's a lot, right? And the reason why I say that is because the world record by a woman is 11 boards. All right? With a back kick. All right? Yeah, I was there firsthand. I saw it in the ring when it happened. Her timing was absolutely perfect. And then if you watch in slow motion how she does it, and when she did it, it's like, my gosh, she was tucked. Her knee wasn't down here. It was up here, and boom, the legs, the boards just folded right inside, you know, and her leg went right through it. But it was the impact when she actually thrust that knee into that first board, and then the momentum pushed through. It was a work of art, you know. But it's timing, because I think she was like 140 pounds. Yeah, because the way she did it was from here, she went here, and then she kind of hopped into it. So she got her body up off the ground. So she was using mass, right? She was using all of her body because it wasn't limited by the friction. Yeah, kind of like the 360 motion, but she didn't do it forward, right? She just kind of, boom, she just did the tail end of it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, you know, part of that is because, right, just doing a single kick like that, you're just going to brush it off, right? You brush it off, right? Right? I mean, that's the thing, right? It's if you look at today's fighting, Olympic style fighting, it's more touch oriented. It's not, you go back, look at, you know, early 2000s, 1990s fighting videos, sparring videos, right? It was all about what they call trembling shock, right? Your ability to stop someone's motion, right? That's what is considered trembling shock. So if someone comes in here and you stop them from coming in, you're hitting hard enough, right? In today's game, they're coming in, you get your foot up to the target and it hits, it's going to score a point, right? It's a touch game, right? It's a touch game. It's a touch and sound game, right? There's not a lot of power behind it. You can tell. You look at, like I said, look at the new style of fighting, and then go back and just YouTube a bunch of 80s, 90s, early 2000s fighting, right? And when you see those people scrap, they're hitting hard, and you can tell the intensity is a lot different than what it is today, all right? Not to say that what these athletes are doing now is anything less than what we did, right? It's just they're adapting to what's expected of them, right? Their ability to manipulate their hip, right? From here, they can throw a cut kick and hit you in the head with a roundhouse kick, and all in the same motion, right? Okay. Once again, though, right? By the time they're done with their fighting career, they're not going to be walking, right? Because they are destroying that hip flexor. They're destroying the tendons and ligaments in there, right? It's not healthy by any means, right? And it's the same thing, right? For us too, if you're always training hard, eventually your body's going to break down. No, it's not bad. They said that our style of fighting, the old school fighting, was bad, right? Too many concussions, too many injuries, right? Once again, safety, right? So they started moving away and started focusing on safety, right? I mean, you think about, you know, they're like, okay, they're worried about football, right? And concussions, right? Youth football and concussions, right? So now you can't lead with the head. You know, they've changed all these rules for football, right? Taekwondo is kind of the same thing. It's evolved, it's changed, right? But do you hear about concussions in Taekwondo fighting? Typically not. When you're at that high level, you see amazing kicks. You see spin heels, spin hooks going to the head. But those aren't the people that are getting knocked out. Right? You know who's getting knocked out? It's the person that fights a high-level competitor, right? Someone who doesn't have as much experience. And then they get their head knocked off because they do a roundhouse kick, and then boom, they take a shot to a spin shot, yeah, right? But that's few and far in between. You know, they used to think, oh yeah, Taekwondo's a violent sport. It's, you know, there's gonna be lots of concussions and everything because you guys are promoting kicking to the head. Right? If I spin hook you to the head, I'm going to get 5 points. Yeah, right? But it's a harder technique to score with, right? You don't even see the Olympians scoring with that. Because why? It's harder to score with that 5-point technique, right? It takes a lot more timing, And people know it's coming. A lot of times they're looking for it. They know it's going to come, right? So you have to be able to hide it. You have to be able to disguise it, right? And same thing, right? Back kicks, right? I do a back kick to the body, right? That's 4 points. Because there's a lot more risk when you expose your back versus this or this, right? Right? I do an axe kick to your face, that's 3 points. Okay? Right? Yeah. But if I'm fighting back this way, right? Hard for you to score axe kick. Right? I can move back, I can move around. That people are focusing on protecting this. So that's why if you can score with people with hands up and stuff like that, then hey, more power to you. Right? But it exposes down here a little bit more. So you see a lot more body shots, right? So you see 2 points for a body kick, just a basic front kick, roundhouse kick to the body. If you do any spin technique, then you get a bonus 2 points. All right? So any headshot with the leg is 3 points. And then with the spin, it's a bonus. So you do a tornado kick to the head, 5 points. Spinning back kick to the head, 5 points. Spinning hook kick to the head, 5 points. All right? So they're rewarding that because why? It's a higher difficulty type of technique, right? Not everyone's going to be able to do this 360 reverse side kick. All right? It's hard. It's not easy. All right? All right? And so, you take a look at some of these kooky one guys and you see the way they do it. It's like, oh my gosh. But then you look at, right? What's their mass, right? Those guys are probably 120 pounds. Yeah, right? Right? So their bodies are better conditioned for that, and the craziness, like them getting launched up 30 feet up in the air, breaking a board and then landing. Think about the impact, right? The impact. Yeah. Yeah, but once again, over the course of time, though, your body breaks down. You land like that. If I'm launching you during practice, right, I guarantee 5 or 6 of those, and then you're going to be like, oh, my God. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then they're landing on mats like this. There's nothing below this. It's just this and then the mat. That's what they're training on, all right? They do that for practice, but when they're performing, it's just this. Right? It's just these mats and then the thing. So so there is, and once again, for me, yeah, it's neat to kind of see that kind of stuff, but for me, I want longevity, right? So I'm gonna, for some of them, if they want to work on 540s, then we'll start working on that kind of stuff. I can teach them all of that stuff like that, but we're gonna focus in on the technique, making sure we're doing it the right way, all right? So going back to your technique there, one of the things that you need to make sure is that you bring that knee up when you get around. That way you can get that extension, because especially on the left side, right, it was just trying to get the leg up, I think is, right, it was a struggle. So it's that tuck motion, right? That motion, right? That tuck. But what happens is that when you're practicing slow, it's hard because, right, you're not used to this, right? Yeah, the balance piece, right? When you're going slow. So anytime that you're practicing a technique, or anytime that you're teaching someone a technique, encourage them to kick low and slow. All right? So when we're doing this and you're teaching, I'm going to teach it to you like this. 1, 2. You see? Just to get that motion. 1, 2. Yeah. Yeah, and so the way you train like 360 motions, the first thing is what's the first movement, right? Tornado kick. Getting it around to the front, right? Because everyone looks at the kick, go, oh, I can do that. And guess what happens? Half the time when a senior blue belt, when they first get the senior blue and they start doing tornado kick, they always kick early, right? So from here, they're always kicking early. And they think that that's good enough, right? Because they just watch and kind of see what everyone does. And they don't understand the mechanics of it. They just know, I got to turn their back and I'm going to kick. And so they're always kicking early. All right? I would say 99.9% of the people who first do tornado kick will always kick early. There's a 0.01% that kick late. If they're kicking early, or are they kicking late? If they're kicking early, what happens is the rotation isn't there, right? They're here, and they start their kick from here. Yeah. So they can't get to the target. I can't get to Mr. Campbell here. All right? Oh, yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. Right? It goes like this. You know, I see a lot of this, right? And that's the other thing, right? They're kicking early, and so what happens? The kick changes, right? It's not a roundhouse kick anymore. Right? Some sort of a crescent roundhouse hybrid kick. Right? And that's where the injuries occur, especially with adults. Especially with the adults. So it's important whenever you see adults doing this, you have to dial them back because their male pride gets in the way. The women don't have the problem. It's the males. All right? The males have the problem, and you have to dial them back. Typically, the women, they will listen, they will follow, they'll take their time in doing this, right? Guys automatically think, oh, yeah, I got this. I already know this, right? And they'll start doing it very quick, just thinking and not working on the mechanics, right? And so a lot of times, you know, so the first thing in regards to Mr. Campbell's technique, that 360 reverse side kick, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to teach this the step. Step, lift, right? Or whatever, right? If I'm going to the backside, right? 1, and then lift, right? You have to be able to break down technique. And that's when you're working with and you see someone doing something wrong, you have to break that down and say, okay, let's look at the mechanics again. And you might have to say, you know what, can I see that one more time? Can I see that again? And you just watch and see them do it. And then just give them one piece to fix. Give them one piece to fix. Because, right, because if they've been doing it wrong all this time and you throw all this information at them, they're not going to remember a single thing. Right? So, right, for you, sir, right? First thing you're going to work on is just make sure you pick that knee up. That's the first thing. Right? And that should help with a lot of that. Right? So when you're diagnosing that technique, you want to make sure that you kind of see it from all different angles as much as possible. Right? If you need to stop the entire class just to kind of watch, you can certainly do that. I don't have a problem with that. You won't lecture unless it applies to the entire class. Want to try to keep the class moving since we are limited on time, trying to get through everything. And then just keep in mind that you do have an audience virtually as well as present. So anytime that you can allow, if you have other black belts that are in there, that you can allow to kind of help divvy up your time. If you are the one that's teaching, your primary focus is going to be the Zoom group because you're the only one that can really communicate with them because via the headset and everything. And then this group here, you can utilize your resources. Now, if you're just by yourself, then you have to balance both. All right. Which leads me to my next subject about class itself. So going back about 5 to 8 minutes of stretching warm-up technique. Then about anywhere between 12 to 15 minutes of kicking technique, whether that's single kicks, 2 kicks, 3 kick combinations. You're not going to go more than 3 kick combinations. And when you're doing that, even though we have a lot of room here, you have to be aware of your Zoom audience. They don't have a lot of space. So no more than 3 consecutive kicks, and then you turn them around. Now, one of the things that you want to keep in mind is if you're doing single kicks and you turn them around. So if you do 1 kick and then you turn them around, you do another kick, turn them around. You're only kicking with the 1 leg. All right, so you have to switch feet so that you can get practice on the other leg. All right. A lot of times what happens is like you do 3 kick combinations, front kick, axe kick, roundhouse kick. Hana, you do it, turn around, hilo tora, do it. All right, and then you keep doing it. Yeah, you do it 10 times or whatever, and then you go on to the next combination. And they haven't worked, left leg front kick. They've been working right leg front kick. They haven't worked the left leg side. So anytime that you finish on an odd number of kicks, right, then you're going to want to switch, right, when you're doing single stationary kicks. Paco. Yeah, Paco. Taco. Paco. Yeah, don't worry about pai bako. Pai bako is the official term, which is switching feet. Pai, which is your foot. Pai, P-A, is kind of a combination of a P and a B. Pai, P-A-L, yeah. Pai. See, pai and pai are different. Pai is foot, pai is arm. So there's little inflections that change the total of what you're saying. So once again, I'm not worried about pronunciation. So if you just say pako, switching feet, pako, right, then everyone will just switch. So, right, just the main techniques, right? 체력, 경례, 준비, 시작, 고만, show. 뒤로 돌아, right? 뒤로 돌아, right? And pako, right? So if you're doing punches, then it would be 손 받고, switching hand, 손. All right, so, but yeah, so going back to when you're doing the techniques, when you're doing step techniques, it gets a little bit trickier, right? So if you're doing a stepping up front kick, step front kick. When you turn, it's a single kick, right? You're doing opposite legs when you turn. Now, if you do front kick, step front kick, and you turn, now it's the same leg again, right? See, this is where it gets confusing, right? So you always want to just kind of think, if you're not sure, just watch one student. Yeah. Just watch one student and just kind of do the count, have them turn, do the count, and see if they're starting with that same leg. And if they are, then that's your cue. Oh, I need to switch and do a couple on the other side just to get that balance, right? Is it going to be horrible that you do just all right leg front kicks, for them? No, it's not going to be, right? Natalie does it all the time, and she's been teaching for a long time, and she still messes it up. So she knows, right? And so, yeah, so keep that in mind. And then two, once after you get done with the kicking technique, I've been giving like a hand technique to work on, or maybe a kick technique to work on. And you give them about 5 minutes to just kind of practice on their own in place, right? So I think yesterday I kind of gave some of the kids like double knife hand guarding block. And I think we did like outside in block. Back fist on one, right? Back fist, this rotation. Because a lot of times everyone just does this, or they just do this, right? Or this, right? So trying to get the chambering correct, right? So when you do a back fist strike, it comes from the inside. You'll see a lot of kids do it from the outside, right? And they come up like this, right? So it's only going to nose level, right? If we think about what the technique is, you're coming down on the bridge of the nose. So you have to come up above your head and come down. Coming down, right? That's what this is designed for. So like in Taekwondo Ojang, right? Boom, right? That's what it is. It's not straight to the nose. It's coming down on the bridge of the nose, right? Yeah, right? And that's different from in Taekwondo Churchang, where you have the side back fist, right? Which is the ITF style back fist. Yeah, temple shot. No, thumb. Rotation. Remember, everything has rotation. To generate speed, to generate power, you want to have rotation. So if you can get a little bit of a twist, that gives snap, right? So a lot of people, they just do this. And that's okay. They can snap the elbow and pretty good. But think about how much stronger it'll be if you kind of wait till the last second to flip your wrist and snap that back fist. All right? Okay, so yeah, just a little bit down. All right? I don't expect, like trying to put your knuckle down and trying to get a full rotation. All right, but just like here. Just like if you were to chamber your knife hand block or your high block. Okay, so. And then just so you guys are aware, I'm going to start changing terminology a little bit so that's more in line with what Kukimon does. So rising block is actually considered a high block, right? So a rising block is an ITF term. So I'm going to start utilizing more high block. So a front kick, or is it a front snap kick? Front kick is fine. Front snap kick is fine. This is a high block. Low block, not down block. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So just because once again, when I initially did it, I've just been going off of what I was taught, what I've trained in. And of course, I came up ITF background. So this was a down block, right? This was a walking stance in ITF. This is walking stance, front walking stance, all right? Yeah, all right? Yeah. Yeah. But you know, from an old school standpoint, the motion was okay, it's a walking motion, right? That's why we call this, because we didn't have any of this. Those this was this was not a stance in ITF. What we know as walking stance is not a stance in ITF. Right? They have an option. They have a, you know, they have a parallel, or not a parallel stance. What do they call it? A fixed stance, right? A fixed stance is probably the closest to it, right? Where it's like your L stance or your back stance, right? But your weight's evenly distributed, right? And your fixed stance is utilized in what they do, U-shaped grab or U-shaped block in ITF, which is a staff block or a staff grab. So someone's coming with a staff, right? You use your hands and you block. Grab here, twist, and you throw. So there's a movement in the senior red belt Pumse called Chungmu, where you go into your staff block, you're going to grab, you're going to jump, 360, throw the staff away, and then come back into defense. 360 reverse jump. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. So kind of give them a technique to kind of work on, and just work on, you know, chambering, hand position, and so forth. Because I want to make a better emphasis of not kids just doing this. And then once again, you have to understand the age level. So I'm not going to expect, you know, the little kids, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds to do a down block with pinky on top, thumb on the bottom. Okay. I just want them to do this. Right. If they can do this, right, great. All right. Because if we can train them at yellow belt, green belt level to do this, then at blue belt, we can incorporate the second hand and makes it much easier. What happens a lot of times, and what I've noticed now is, because I've been using Swojus as an example, because Swojus is 5 and he's on my competition team, right? And so I've been trying to get him to do blocks with both hands. Problem is he focuses on this and then he loses everything else. So he forgets which way, so he's concentrating on this and he forgets which way he has to turn. All right. And so I realize now it's like, okay, even though he's on competition team and I want him to perform at a high level, right? For him at his age, if he can do this, he's going to still find success because he's a green belt. All right. Same thing with Ben. If I can get Ben to do this, that's good. That's a win, right? Because typically Ben does down block this way. Yeah, he hooks it up, right? Instead of coming straight up. So those types of things, right? So being able to break down that technique to the different levels, right, is going to be key. So you give them a high block technique, then you teach just, hey, just do this. Start from the belt and work up, okay? Don't hook it. Don't come across this way and up. Just lift straight up. And then for the older students, then you add the hand and rotate. Boom. All right, and then give that, and like I said, just spend about 5 minutes on that. Then you can do the second half of the class with just forms if you want to work on forms. And you can do forms either way. You can count them up and have everyone do them. Or if you wanted to, if you got a small class, just have them practice by themselves and then just work on your forms. And then you go around and you provide feedback on what they're doing. Ask them if they have any questions. All right. And then this has been the challenge, and I'm trying to figure out what the best way to do sparring. Sparring is difficult now because we're trying to maintain social distance guidelines. 1 steps, 3 steps, we can do that. It's a little bit hard for the little kids to understand like where I should be. So like when you're doing socially distant 3-step sparring and you're doing number 6, this is what happens a lot of times. So on the 3rd block on number 6, they're still kicking the person, right? They're kicking toward the direction of the person. Yeah. And the reality is what? I should be here, kicking this way. So the social distance is a little bit difficult for the littler kids, all right? So that's why a lot of times, you know, you try to put a representation. It's like, okay, You know, when you make that jump, you want to jump to the back of your room. Jump toward the back of your room and then turn toward the camera and kick toward the camera. Right? It's challenging because I'm watching here and I'm going, okay, which way are they supposed to be jumping? Which way are they supposed to be going? Right? And then here they're doing it okay. They're doing it fine. It's like I can tell them, oh yeah, you know, kick toward the jump ropes, kick toward the back door. All right. So. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, because they have to have some sort of visual reference, because they can't. They're especially the young kids. They have a hard time visualizing there's someone punching. All right. So sometimes I'll have like Isaiah, hey, stand up here, just do a punch. That way they can kind of see someone there to kind of get a visual. For adults, we can kind of visualize it a little bit. Right? Teenagers can kind of visualize it a little bit. All right. But especially adults, like for me, I have no problem visualizing what you're doing, what I want to accomplish when you make your imaginary technique, what I want to do. All right. Takedowns is very hard. Takedowns is hard because we can't do any like contact stuff. So anytime that, like when you're in class and you have a family together, have them train together. Have them do takedowns together. Right. So if it's Mr. Roldan and his son decides to take class, even though his son might be a white belt, right, still have them work together on the step sparring techniques. Right. That way they can get that closer visual representation to kind of help them through that process. So anytime you can do that, where you can pair them up, and then if not, then you pair them up with people about their same height. Right. Typically, you don't want to do like a green belt with a blue belt unless you're just doing one steps. All right. If you're going to do takedowns, don't put a green belt with a blue belt. Right. Because the green belts haven't been taught how to fall or to do all of that stuff. And that's the other thing too, is that I'm going to start working on teaching the falling side of it. So instead of just teaching you how to do the movement, taking them down, I'm going to teach you now, okay, when they do that, this is what you're going to do to get to the ground, so that you understand how to fall, right? Because I don't want, because what I'm noticing now is because of the fact that we can't practice hand-to-hand in close quarters, right? When they get an opportunity to do that, they don't know how to do it correctly. And so the person who doesn't know how to fall, they're not sure what the kid's doing, right? They fall the wrong way or whatever, and they're getting their leg trapped underneath in an awkward position or whatever. And then, of course, I don't want the adults, obviously, if from an adult standpoint, if an adult's working with a child, I encourage the adult not to fall. Just to kind of motion which way to go, but you're not going to fall. Because even slightly falling, right, you can injure yourself. I think when Isaiah was coming up as a blue belt, I had him working with a tall gentleman, and tall gentleman wanted to make him look good, and so he was practicing his falls, threw out his shoulder, tore his rotator cuff, just kind of landing on his side, tore his rotator cuff, and he was out for 6 months. Yeah. So I'm realizing now too that I want to make sure that when we're doing this, we're gonna teach that falling side, and I might teach it to everyone. So I was like, okay, if someone takes your leg, you're gonna kind of fall back to the side this way. It's gonna be hard though, like because the people at home, I'd like to teach them, like judo falls, judo rolls. Those are very key in falling. Helps you to fall properly, because when you're falling backward, what do? Put your hands back here, which is what you don't want to do when you're falling back. You want to do this and just fall on the flat of your back. You want to tuck your chin in versus allowing your head to kind of fall back, because then your head hits. So those types of things we want to kind of work on. And it kind of helps, it helps in helping them understanding. And also, like I said, hopefully they'll never fall, but if they do fall, then they'll know how to at least land properly and not risk damaging their arm, shoulder, something, and getting concussed. So, yep. And then basically, we haven't been doing we haven't been doing any free sparring. You can, it's just I have to wipe them down after everyone does them. Yeah, people at home, they can't. So a lot of times if we do a specialty sparring class, then usually it's people that have already gear and so forth. So what we will probably start utilizing is my Armor 2020s. So now that I've got 2 Billies and 2 Bobs, I've got 4 Hogus now. So now I can have the adults get up on one of these, and then we just put them in a mode, and then you guys can practice doing techniques and hitting that. I honestly, I can't foresee us being able to physically spar at least anytime this year. I would say until they come up with some sort of a vaccine, I don't think that the restriction would be lifted at all. So a lot of what we'll do is a lot of bag types of kicking and so forth. And I'll encourage people to try to, if they can, try to find one. All right. Facebook Marketplace, there's tons of these bags for like $50. You can get one for $50. All right. I mean, I drove it to Fort Collins to get that Billy, but the guy gave it to me for $75. And those, oh yeah, it was a pain. It was a horrible drive. It was a horrible drive. Oh my gosh. There was 6 accidents on my drive up there. They're all on the southbound side, and traffic was just snarled. So I had to find back ways to come back down southwise. But yeah, so, but anytime that I look around, so the going rate, I think most people are selling like the big Bobs for about $200, like a used Bob. You can get a brand new one for about $350, $400, but then there's shipping involved. And right now, the demand is so high, they're having a hard time getting produced because people are now working out at home now. So a lot of these are being sold right now. So if you see one like on Facebook Marketplace, you want to jump on it pretty quick because they're not lasting it. They're lasting maybe an hour on the marketplace before someone has a request on it. So yeah. So but there's lots of these Wavemaster bags. For the adults, I recommend if you can find one that's the Wavemaster Double XL. It's that wide as that black bag. The bag itself is that wide, but it's tall. It's like about 6 feet tall. And the base is lower, right? But it's denser and heavier. Yeah, the Wavemaster XXL is very good for adult kicking. These other Wavemasters are perfect for kids. So you talk to someone, I bet you can talk them down to about $40, I bet. Some of them, most of them are listing them about $80. You could probably talk them down to at least 40 or $50, and you can get one of these. Fill it with water, put it in your basement. Yeah. Yeah. You have yours is kind of like an XL. Yeah. And see, that's great. Yeah. The XLs you'll find on Facebook Marketplace, they're probably going for about $200 too. But they're hard to find. They're hard to find. I haven't been able to find one, So it seems like when I find one, I put a bid in on it, and they're like, oh, someone else beat you to it or whatever. Because I'd like to get, at least a bigger one for the adults. I still have my hanging bag, so that's always good for the adults. Right. But it's good to kind of, if you guys want to do like some really good power kicking, you can do it on that one. That one's okay. But when you have that double XL and it's tall and everything like that, it feels really good to kick. So, yeah, you don't want to be kicking real hard on these thinner Wavemasters. Yeah, you're gonna end up kicking the base in the inner base. You start feeling it a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. So, but like for the teenagers, they can kick on that Wavemaster. It's fine. So, but it's just more for targeting. So. Any of the kids that really want to kind of focus in on a little bit on the sparring piece, invest some time, have them invest in that. And I'm going to start putting suggestions out for that, since we will continue to have an online presence regardless of once the pandemic's done. We're going to still continue to do this. I think that going forward, there's going to be a lot more caution in regards to martial arts, grappling arts, wrestling, things like that they're gonna have to rethink how they do things. I think we have to rethink how we do things as well, and we focus a little bit more on like the self-defense piece versus the Olympic sparring style piece. Yeah. So Yeah. So, so like with the kids and everything, you know, we'll encourage them to, you know, to do that, but I'm not going to be enforcing gear or anything right now. You know, if they want to do things like that, then we'll just put them on each individual bags and we'll just start timing, stamina drills, things like that, and then working on specific techniques. Okay, we're going to work on a cut kick here, cut kick, and you'll cut kick the bag. So. Mm, it's all we. It's all what most adults have is just bag work. You know, that's the only way to truly test your what you know, right? Because you really can't go full force on a, you know, even in a sparring match. You know, you're not trying to go for force unless you go to a tournament. Then that gives you a little bit more perspective. You know, you can go kick harder and not feel like you're feeling bad about kicking someone because it's, you know, versus like even yeah, it's a new, it's a musical set, but also too, you know, you know, when you're in a tournament and you get kicked hard, you know, you're gonna kick hard back. It's just that behavior breeds behavior, right? So it's the, you know, so you're gonna react to what the situation's giving you, right? And so hopefully what happens is it doesn't give you that, oh, I'm scared now and I don't want to do it. So, yeah. So, all right. Any other questions or anything? I took a little extra of your time, so I do apologize. We will not be we will not have class next Saturday because of the 4th of July holiday. Yeah. Yeah, today and tomorrow, I think. So it's going on right now. So it's weird. Timing is just weird right now. It came to a halting, screeching halt like end of March and beginning of April. Like came to a screeching halt, and then it's just everything just kind of seems to be in a warp right now. Since about middle of April till now, I've lost sense of time. Oh, what is it? Oh, it's already June's already done, going into July and things like that. So it's been nothing really makes sense. So, but yeah, so I'm going to be changing things around with the curriculum a little bit. So if you guys have any suggestions on that, please let me know. And then I do not yet, so I do apologize. Yeah, I've sent it there and I've posted it. So yeah, I don't have any physical copies of it. So all it is just basically it's just instead of 50, yeah, it's just we're adding the 7 o'clock, but we're not doing tournament training. So basically that's what that is. Since I don't really have, you know, I don't have a lot of people that are wanting to compete right now. Some like the virtual competition, others don't. And so I'm not really doing anything. So basically what I'm going to end up doing is I'm offering a lot of private lessons for the competition team because they've already invested money into the program. But since they're not competing per se, so I'm doing that. And then on top of that, if we resume up competition team next year, basically it'll be at a discounted rate. So, and then they'll get all the benefits and everything. I think that, you know, hopefully competition, like in-person competition will probably start back up here in the beginning of next year. What that's going to look like, I don't know. So. Times are the same. Yeah. So everything is at the top of each hour. It's just going 45 minutes versus the 50-minute time frame that we were. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. 4 o'clock is the fullest. 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock are full. Just so you know. 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock fill up pretty quick. 5 o'clock has been unusually light. What the heck is that? Yeah. 5 o'clock is unusually light. So